All right. Hey, everyone out there. Dr. Jonathan Shepherd here. It is so good to be with you on a Wednesday evening again. We've been doing these special editions of Ask the Doctors on Wednesdays as we have some wonderful experts and guests and have allowed for us to come on the day before Thanksgiving of 2021. And we're so thankful that all of you are out there joining us. Come on in the room and let me know that you are there. Please comment. Let us know that you're there. Say hello. We will welcome you warmly and thank you for all those who are coming on in. I see you coming on in the room. Please like and share and like this episode. The last few episodes have just been transformational. Honestly, it's been really helpful to so many people. And I am thankful to be a part of a platform where people are literally being changed. And today is no different at all. I have my two friends who are with me, who are typically with me each month. That's Dr. Draza and Dr. Griffin. And they're going to be coming on very shortly. But wanted to acknowledge my company, Hope Health Systems, which is a mental health organization located in Woodlawn, Maryland, suburb of Baltimore, Maryland, where I serve as a chief medical director. And I am grateful that I have this platform that they work alongside with me. And with this platform, we're able to provide education. And at Hope Health Systems, we will provide direct mental health care services. So if you're in need of mental health care services, like so many are right now, please contact us. I'll even put our website down at the bottom so that it will be scrolling and you can see. Go there. You can get a referral. You can even complete a referral online, and we'll make sure that we reach out to you. There you go, hopehealthsystems.com. I'm ready, and I know that you all are ready. Somebody's probably at home cooking that turkey and making sweet potato pie and washing those greens. And my brother, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago, he said we need to cancel chitlins. Some of y'all may not know what chitlins are, but we ain't gonna go there today. But yeah. I know that if you're at home cooking, come on, let me know that you're at home watching us cooking, and we'll let you know what we are put on the menu, what we like to taste. So thank you, Dr. Hayes, and I appreciate your consistency. Thank you, Chris, for watching. And Dr. Hayes, you have to let us know what you're cooking there back in Ohio. All right, let's bring on Dr. Erica Jaraza and Dr. Marilyn Griffin. And I hesitated because she's been married since the last time that we've seen her last. So I'm not sure if is this your first time being on the show since you were married?
It is not.
Oh, okay.
Hi, everyone.
All right. That's right. We did have one show right after the wedding.
Did.
That's right.
Did.
Well, welcome. Welcome, Dr. Erica. So just introduce yourself real quick. We're going to jump on into our discussion today.
All right. Well, my name's Dr. Erica Jaraza. I'm a child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist, and I'm the co-owner of Catalyst Therapeutic Services in Durham, North Carolina, and also serve as the chair of the board of Project Heal, which is a nonprofit organization which helps to break down healthcare, systemic, and financial barriers to eating disorder treatment. So I'm excited to be here, and I have a little buddy here with me tonight.
Oh, my.
Theo. So he's hanging with me. He's kind of tired, which hopefully he won't bark. So, but if you see anything furry or hear any barking, that's Theo.
See anything furry? Okay, great. All right, Marilyn.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good to be back with you all. I'm Dr. Marilyn Griffin. I am also a child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist. I am currently the behavioral health medical director of a large managed care organization here in Illinois.
All right, wonderful. Yes, yes, she is. And thank you, Toya, for being on here live. I think it's been a minute since I've seen you on here live, and she's a wonderful supporter, consistent supporter of Ask the Doctors. And thank you for being here. She's all the way out in California, you all. So she's three
Wow.
times.
Wonderful.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Oh,
yes,
West Side.
absolutely, absolutely. We got to get Toya on here. She actually has a non-for-profit where she is concerned about people who have post-traumatic stress disorder.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So I did a webinar. I think that's what you would call it. And she'll get in the comment section and let us know, Toya, what that the name of your organization that you are a part of, and that is. And she's still there. Hopefully, she is. And oh yeah, there she is. So yeah, put it in the in the comment section if you would, so we can boost it. And we're thankful for her. Yeah, just wanted to bring the two of you all on. There we go. Empowered to overcome. Isn't that a name?
oh,
Oh,
So
I
empower.
love it.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So
I
Toya, we're
love
gonna
that, Toya.
yeah. So we're gonna have you on here on this platform soon, Toya. So yeah, I wanted to just bring you all on just to say hello. Last time Dr. Griffin was unable to be with us, and so just wanted to check in with you all as we're doing. Today's topic is what's wrong. It's supposed to be the happiest time of the year. And we're going to talk about grief. I don't want to go there just yet because I want our other panelists to come on, but just wanted to do a quick check in with you, Dr. Griffin, Dr. Draza. People ask me sometimes how you're doing. You just told the people what you do. Just do a quick 30-second check in to let us know how you are doing since the last time we've seen you on this broadcast.
Go ahead, Dr. Griffin.
Sure. So, um, ironically, unfortunately, whatever word we want to use to describe, I was not with you all last month because I was traveling to go to a funeral. We had a loss in my family. My aunt died. So um, we are we're okay. You know, we're managing as best we can. I have shared previously about this period of time because I lost my father around Thanksgiving and Christmas several years ago. And, you know, it always comes back. It always comes back. Even though, you know, you can heal, the memories are still there of that loss. But we are here today to tell you that there can be joy and there's life beyond a loss.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes,
Wonderful synopsis. Erica, just give us a quick update.
absolutely. Well, condolences to you and to both of you. Oh my goodness, both of you lost
Mhm.
aunts in the last month or so. I'm doing okay. I think, just adjusting to work. I'm tired, maybe experiencing a little burnout. So this week is right on time, just getting a little bit of time to chill and to rest and trying to prioritize resting. So that's my hope. But I'm excited to be here. I really am. And I didn't want to miss this topic, especially because it's just so important. I think so many of us are dealing with grief in the midst of the holidays in so many different ways. So I'm just honored to be here tonight.
Good, good. And we have a special guest who is here with me. She has known me the longest. I know that Dr. Griffin, Dr. Draza have very good friends, but actually, she has known me the longest out of all the persons on this platform today. Her name is Dr. Lauren Henderson. I want to have her come on, and she's going to introduce herself and tell you all the wonderful things that she does. How you doing, Lauren?
Oh,
Oh, you're
You're
muted.
on mute.
It's the microphone.
Okay,
There we
can you
go.
hear me now? Hello, everyone. Hi.
hello.
Hey, Lauren.
Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, so my name is Dr. Lauren Henderson, and I am a sociologist in the Department of Sociology, Anthropology, and Public Health at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And I have known Dr. Shepherd for a very long time, ever since I was 13 years old, actually, is when we first met. And I've been invited here to talk about the topic, pretty much to talk about grief some of the things that we experience when we go through grief, how we can recognize it, and some of the things we can do to manage it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Lauren has a tremendous study. Tell people just a little bit about some of the work that you're doing and where you're working at, because it's phenomenal. And then she even has a personal testimony that we're not going to hear just yet, but I want the people just to hear a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so as a sociologist, I study racial inequality in health and wealth. I look at a lot of different outcomes. So if you happen to Google me or look me up, you'll see that I've done quite a broad range of work. But right now, my major focus is I'm working on an edited volume that's under contract with Cincinnati Press, looking at COVID disparities, racial disparities in COVID. And I'm also collecting data with my co author, Dr. Barbara Scott from Northeastern Illinois University. And we're working on a project looking at the parenting strategies and coping strategies of Black mothers who've been parenting under COVID in Chicago. And I'm hoping to expand that study to 4 different cities. So that's what
Wow. You will be back. I just want to let you know.
yeah.
You will be back on another topic in relation to what you just said, because that's just awesome. So it's just phenomenal. And toward the end of the show, I'll let you know the connection that I have with Lauren. But yeah, she has known me the longest. And she said age 13 that she was. I don't know how old I was. I think I was.
I think we're the same age. We're the same age. Are we not
Good
telling
one,
that?
Dr.
Okay.
Henderson.
She said, go ahead, tell it. Oh, no. I'm going to keep it to myself.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So grief. We're going to be talking about grief and what's wrong, and it's supposed to be the happiest time of the year. So what I want to do is just start off with the question. How come this is not the happiest time of the year? I'm going to start with you first, Dr. Griffin, and then we'll kind of make our way around. How come this is not the happiest time of the year? I'm supposed to be singing. I'm supposed to be singing jingle bells and have my wreath around the door, and even if you want to wear it or whatever, you're supposed to be jolly. So help us out. What's going on here?
Well, that's really a loaded question, Dr. Shepherd. There are a variety of reasons as to why this might not be the most wonderful time of the year for everyone. But since we're talking about grief, then I'll focus on grief. And I think it's very important for us to know and understand that grief is a normal reaction, right? It's a normal reaction or response to a loss. Now, I know a lot of people probably associate grief with the death of a loved one, the death of a pet, but it really encompasses any loss. So we think about loss of jobs, especially now due to COVID, loss of a service, perhaps, any type of service, right? Loss of a service, loss of a relationship, which could be a romantic relationship or friendship. It could even be retirement for some people that may have been forced to retire because of the circumstances and the downsizing of some of the companies because of COVID. So that's one main reason why it's not the most wonderful time of the year. Okay. And whether these losses occurred now, like during this time, maybe a year ago or 5 years ago, it still does not diminish the feelings that people feel during this time. And I know we'll probably talk about triggers a little bit later, but just the anniversary of a certain loss or remembering a memory about a particular tradition or event that you and your family or loved one would do around this time.
Yeah. I want to jump on in, Dr. Draza.
Yeah, so thank you for setting the stage and a foundation, Dr. Griffin, because you're absolutely right. I think grief comes in so many different ways, and I think we often associate it with death of a loved one, and that is true. We do experience grief in those times, but just to expand, it could be broken relationships, where there's conflict in family or conflict among friends, or even expectations not being met. You know, some people thinking that they would have been at a certain place in their life at this time, and maybe not they haven't been there yet. They're still waiting for things and hoping for things that they just haven't seen. And sometimes there's grief that comes along with that too. And when we talk about grief, it can show up in so many different ways. And we all probably know the stages of grief, but I'll review them just in case we don't know. But typical stages of grief can include things like shock or denial. We can experience sadness, depression, symptoms that really look like major depression. We can experience anxiety or questioning. We start to ask ourselves why or what could have been different. Maybe we start to internalize those questions and ask, what did we do wrong? Or could we have done or said something to change the outcome? And we internalize that. So anxiety can be a part of it. And then anger. And I think that's important too. Irritability, anger, that is real. That is a part of grief. And I think it's something that we should expect. But ultimately, there come two other stages, which are one, acceptance of whatever it is whatever loss we're dealing with at the time. We may not love it. We may not like it. We may hurt and experience a lot of pain, but being able to come to a place of acceptance, and then ultimately being able to make meaning of that experience and that loss, which is such an important step. And I think whenever we think about the stages of grief, we have to realize it's messy, it's ugly, it's not a linear process, it's not textbook like, okay, I'm going to enter this stage now, and then the next stage, now I'm in stage 5. No, 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 no. It's like literally a hot mess. And there are moments when you can be fine, and then all of a sudden there's one little tiny trigger that takes you immediately back to that point of loss, right? And during the holidays, the reason why sometimes it can be really difficult is because holidays are associated with memories. Holidays are associated with relationships, right? The relationships we hold dear to us. And there could be slight little triggers that occur. Maybe it's going back into our, childhood home, or maybe it's a certain dish that somebody made or tried to make that auntie can make. And it's like, but this ain't the same. She put an egg in her mac and cheese. You're not supposed to do that. Whatever that may be, the slightest little trigger can cause us to
Yeah.
experience and feel that pain and that grief. Almost, it hits us so hard. It's almost as if we're reliving that pain all over again and that loss all over again. So
Yeah,
that's why it can be really difficult during this time.
absolutely, absolutely. Let me get Dr. Henderson in here. This has been wonderful. I love the way in which we've been starting out. So, Dr. Henderson, you have that same question, but since we've already been flowing into with the triggers, so you can even begin to expand into like what are some of these triggers that people may experience during the holidays, even while they're celebrating. So, go ahead.
Well, I'll just speak from what I've learned as a
Mhm.
sociologist and what I've learned as a widow, right? Is that at this time of year, um, because we fall into routines, we have patterns as human beings, and we're used to certain things. We might be used to a certain smell, or the lighting of a Christmas tree, or listening to the holiday music in the store or in the car. And you might find yourself that when these things are happening out external to you, you can't control them, right? You have to go to the store. You can't control if they're playing Christmas music, or maybe you can't control all 25 good Christmas movies on TV. And you start to remember the times that maybe you shared with your family or friends who may no longer be here, particularly under COVID. This is a very stressful time living under the pandemic. We have to alter our routines. Many of us are afraid to spend time with our families, but we're
Mhm.
simultaneously afraid not to. We
Wow.
don't know if we're going to lose our family members and this might be the last time we see them, or the last time we see them is because we brought them COVID. That is a
Mm.
very stressful and anxiety provoking kind of thing, because we're all, as human beings right now, living under COVID. You can be the richest person in the world, but you could still be afraid to eat at the table with your loved one. Or you could be very poor in a homeless shelter and afraid to have a meal with someone. So, this is a global pandemic that's causing extreme anxiety, especially in the US, right? We know that we had nearly 50% of the population, adult population, reporting anxiety and depression, right, in March of 2020. So, this is a really stressful time. So, I would say to the audience, if you feel stress, you're not alone, and
Wow.
it's normal.
Mhm. Wow, thank you. Wow, that was so rich in what you just shared. I'm going to reset the room, and I want to just thank some of the people who are joining us. I see some new people who I have maybe they have watched us before. This is their first time commenting, and that's Teresa Smith. I hope I'm saying your first name right, and Sophia Johnson, and there's some others who are out here, and they're talking about some of the triggers. Talking about food, you know, missing their grandmothers or the mother's dressing. I think that was one of them. Missing their grandmother. I keep saying grandmother. I miss my grandmother's dressing. Mother's dressing, and Lisa's peach cobbler. Man, my grandmother. She would literally have a whole table full of desserts. She had what's called fried pies.
Oh,
Lord,
Wow.
wow.
fried pies. And you know what it really was? It was a turnover. But you could tell her that was a fried pie. It had the burnt crust on each side. And it would be right unless it had a little bit of that burnt. But I remember even my grandma, she would make these wonderful caramel cakes. And when I graduated from residency of Maryland, and I had her to make me a caramel cake. This was in 2009.
I
And
love comic.
and let me tell you, that caramel cake had 4, 5 different layers on it.
Woo!
And I brought those folks. They they ditched the cater food. They were like, we want that food. It was hilarious. People had not even. I mean, they literally were like, we have never tasted anything this good before. And so I miss those things at this time of year because we were so used to having those things. And my grandmother actually, she died 2 years ago, just 6 days before Christmas. 6 days before Christmas. And so yeah, it is. Like that's a trigger. My grandfather, her husband, died the day after Thanksgiving. So it's just a tough time. And why are we talking about this today as we're going to get ready to transition here? Because we want people to be okay and to communicate. And I am so thankful. And I know Lauren at some point is going to get to talk about some of the things that she has. And I heard her talk about some of the things that she wants to see happen, even in religious organizations regarding groups and things to be able to help those people who have encountered grief and widow and being a widow and being a widower. This is good. This is good. So, what I want to do now is let's talk about some unhealthy ways. Yeah, let's go there. You know, we're the physicians, we're the doctors. We would tell no. Let's talk about it because some of us even got unhealthy ways. And oh, I dare say, get in that comment section and talk about an unhealthy way to grieve. Oh man, I would love to see that. That's just the educator in me because I like to present both sides. Who wants to start out with that, Dr. Draza? Why don't we start out with you? Just the
Okay.
unhealthy, too anxious.
Yes. Well, the first thing that comes to mind, and just being mindful of so many patients I've been working with who are dealing with grief for a number of reasons right now. I met with a student recently who lost several, like in the teens of her family members to COVID, and had just been running, 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 running. Sometimes we can avoid the grieving process by being busy. And busyness and productivity tends to keep us going, right? So we never pause to make space to process our grief. So avoidance, whatever that may look like for you, that may be work, it may be, being more engaged with their kids and in their business, like what y'all up to. It could be, I'm guilty, probably doing a little too much exercise, my Peloton. Me and my Peloton becoming best BFFs, but just constantly going from one thing to the next without really pausing and creating the space. And you have to do that. So that's one. I don't know how many you want me to give. You want to go around, Dr. Shepherd? Okay.
That's it. Let's hear from Dr. Griffin.
Yeah.
So I want to piggyback on Dr. Draza's avoidance. Sometimes the avoidance is not intentional. And the reason I say that is because so my father will have died 16 years ago on December 22nd. So he had a stroke the Sunday after Thanksgiving. I was a fourth year medical student when this happened. And being in medicine, you just have to, you're trained to keep going, to push stuff aside and keep going. Now, I will say that my attendings at the time were pretty okay and about letting me go home or go, wherever I needed to go to be with my family. But I was still expected to know the material, to know what was going on with my patients. And then I had to graduate, right? Graduate, and then I started residency. And then I had a series of other deaths my first year of residency. So I really didn't have the time or the space to grieve. So I just wanted to, say that sometimes you don't have control over that. You may have to, you're the sole provider for your family. So you have to work or you have to pick up those extra hours in order to make ends meet for your family. So, and some people use it as a coping skill. So, that's a way for me to financially care for my family by going to work, picking up these extra hours. But another form of unhealthy, and I don't know if we could spin this to being healthy, but is overspending or overindulging. So not only just overspending and purchasing things, but overeating, over drinking, using substances, whether they're legal or illegal. Those can be some very unhealthy ways of coping and just lead to other problems.
Yeah. Dr. Henderson, come on.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dr. Henderson. Come on, jump on there.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, okay. Well, again, I know that all of you physicians are much more versed in these kinds of negative coping skills that people engage in, right? But, maybe to normalize it a little bit to help people to understand why they might be engaging in these behaviors, particularly for widows and widowers, right? At this time of year, they will engage in all of these behaviors, but some of the other behaviors that people are less likely to talk about, but I'm not afraid to talk about, right? Engaging in unhealthy safe sex practices, right? Maybe putting your body at risk and doing things that you feel lonely, you just want some comfort, you want someone to be with you. Especially at this time of the year, you might let your guard down, especially if you're drinking, right? So you might be less likely to use protection and to keep your body safe, and again, the spending sprees, right? We live in a capitalist society that encourage us to spend a lot of money, and it feels good to shop, right? Like it feels good to buy something and you have something new, but then you get home, in January 15th, that bill comes in and it's very stressful, right? So we have to think about that and those effects of it. So those are coping mechanisms, but if you're engaging in those practices, right, and you see yourself going down into a spiral, reach out for help. right? Ask someone, talk to someone, especially one of the doctors that are here, right? I know they'll always take your call to direct you to the right place if they don't have space. But reaching out and asking for help early if you see yourself starting down that path.
Forgive me, Dr. Draws, you were going to say something
Oh,
else.
no. I was just gonna say, and that is absolutely spot on, both of you. And I think tracking back those behaviors, we have to ask ourselves why, right? What's the intention behind it? Or sometimes, like Dr. Griffin said, it's not even intentional, but grieving is painful. It's hard. The emotions are really, really, really tough to manage and to deal with sometimes. So as such, we sometimes want to avoid those feelings, right? We want to be able to just suppress them so that we don't have to feel. And sometimes it's easier to not feel than to feel the pain associated with grief. So the shopping, I'm guilty. That makes up for it, right? That feels good. Then I don't have to sit in that pain of despair or sadness, right? I get to kind of give myself a break from that. And sometimes, and I think what's really important, I know we're kind of talking about these coping mechanisms and like black or white thinking in a way, like healthy or unhealthy. But I really want to just emphasize that some of these actually can be healthy.
Yeah,
It can be
yeah,
good to go and treat yourself,
that's right.
but we don't want to go overboard, right?
Stay within your means.
That's right. Stay within the means. Sure, you want to be able to engage in some of these things, but it's not an all or nothing. There are some behaviors that you continue, right, to ignore those feelings that are underlying your grief, then it will catch up eventually. Well, our body will deal with it, whether it's emotionally or physically. So we just, because it takes our whole entire body to process grief. So just want to point that out too.
No, this is excellent. This is excellent. I want somebody to comment. Toya, man, you are really helping us today. I love it. I love it. She's mentioned cancel culture. I want somebody to speak to that. You mentioned cancel culture and lashing out as being potential unhealthy ways of grieving. Comment on that. Any one of you.
So I think with both of those, cancel culture and lashing out, it's just a grief is a reaction, right? So I don't want to use the same word. It's just a reaction, but maybe it is. It's kind of a knee jerk reaction to something, right? Without taking the time to really think about what some short term or the long term consequences of these behaviors may be, just based upon sometimes one incident.
Gotcha. Anybody else want to jump in? Yeah.
And I think irritability is a feature, right, of that we can see associated with depressive symptoms, with the holiday blues, and with grief. Sometimes it comes out with irritability, and when we're irritable, we could just have a shorter fuse, right? We just have a harder time tolerating distress. That's why at holiday time, there's no coincidence that that's when people want to fight over parking spots. It's like, okay, we're supposed to be happy and jolly. We're going to get gifts, but you're trying to cut people off in traffic. You can't tolerate somebody who might get a little lost, who just needs to like get over. You're like, no, you're not. You're blowing horn. So we tend to be a little bit more testy. And sometimes just have, like Dr. Griffin said, a little bit more reactive. And our ability to tolerate distress can be a lot lower when we're grieving. So I think it's important when we are going through that process of grief to just pause and ask ourselves, could this be?
Mm.
Am I angry, or could this really be my grief? Could this really be that I'm struggling right now? And it's okay to say and acknowledge that we're not okay. That's we try to be strong, and especially around the holiday time. But it's okay to pause and just check in with ourselves and say, actually, I am being a little bit more irritable, and I am being shorter with my kids, and yelling quicker, and maybe at work going off on people, or I'm not as patient. So that can be a feature of grief.
Hey, you want to jump in there? Dr.
Oh,
Henderson, anything?
well, I think that the both the psychiatrists, again, have fully covered
Okay.
the ways in which we kind of lash out, or the way that grief is expressed when people are, feeling really sad and everything. I think the thing that I would like to comment on is
Hmm.
that under COVID, it's a different type of grief that you may be experiencing. You might be
Okay.
experiencing right now, right, the loss of routine because you can't visit family, or you would normally be thinking about going on your cruise out of Baltimore to, you're going to get on your Carnival cruise. So if you're feeling loss, if you're feeling frustrated because you can't engage in behaviors that are so traditional for you or familiar to you, to know that that actually is a normal experience that so many people are having right now. Just to kind of normalize that a little bit under COVID. That if you're feeling that, you're like, but I didn't lose anybody. Why am I feeling this way? I didn't lose my job. Why am I feeling this way? Because you're living in a global pandemic.
That's right. We are
Absolutely.
all, everybody is
Right. And
grieving.
you,
I mean, that really does normalize it, Dr. Henderson. Everyone is grieving in some way or another with COVID, in some way or another. So, absolutely. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Wow. And I'm looking at this. Ooh, Dr. Griffin, I think you might have a relative, Maurice Griffin, who is a noted recording artist. I've known Maurice for a long time too. Yeah, he has a wonderful
okay.
song. Yeah, here's a hashtag love, peace, and happiness. You should go Google that song, and I love that song. And yeah, thank you for joining in, Maurice. I don't know, Dr. Griffin. You have to go research that in your
Right.
family tree.
I don't know.
Ancestry.com. So,
We so silly. No, I'm not from Virginia, Maurice. And we are from Mississippi.
okay,
But
gotcha,
you never know. Never
gotcha,
know.
No,
gotcha.
not
Okay.
anymore.
All right. So this has been wonderful. We're gonna shift gears just a little bit here, and I love the dialogue. We're gonna stay tuned. You need to share this. I love it. Toria has been sharing it. I've been sharing it. When you see me look down, that means I'm out there sharing this platform because somebody out there needs to hear this. Somebody out here needs to know it's okay. It's all right. I was looking at episode real quickly that reminded me as were talking about how grief will build up and bubble out, so to speak, if you do not allow it to be released. Florida Evans, good time. Do you remember that episode when?
We are
Yeah, yeah.
correct.
Remember that
Of
when
course.
her husband died and she was just going along and as if nothing was happening, and then just one little thing tipped her over the edge, and she bam, and she cursed, which was like a sin for her.
Ooh,
And yeah, 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 and it just was such a reaction. It was such a true reaction. And so,
Mhm.
even for myself, I've been through a season of grief, an extended period of grief, honestly, since 2019. I talked about how my grandmother died in December of 2019. And I had multiple deaths, but even with that, I had complicated grief, if you would. Not here trying to diagnose myself or ask the doctors, but it was complicated because I had multiple, or I really should use the word cumulative grief. I shouldn't use the word complicated. Cumulative. Thank you, Dr. Henderson. I felt your presentation. Correct me. Cumulative grief. And so it was because I had multiple losses within 4 weeks of each other, significant losses. My uncle and then my aunt, which caused for me not to be able to even host the show because I was taking time for myself. I was making sure that I was okay and to be with my family. And, this is really significant for even for me and for the things that I have encountered. Dr. Henderson, I think this is a good segue. I want you just to talk about a little bit about some of the things that you've seen in the Black culture and some of the things that you have seen as missing when it comes to how to deal with grief within our Black churches, within our Black organizations. And again, no pressure. Whatever you want to share, please share.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Shepherd. So, my phenotype doesn't necessarily lend itself to why would I be looking at the Black community, but my mom's African American and my dad is Italian. And I grew up in Chicago. I went to church with Dr. Shepherd. That's how we know each other. We didn't live in the same community, but we worshiped in the same community. So that's how we knew each other. And my community was probably, I'm sure, very different from Dr. Shepherd's growing up because eventually I moved to Dr. Shepherd's community as an adult, but we didn't, he wasn't there at the time, but I moved there. And so I'm pretty sure that our growing up experience was different in that. But when when we think about the grief, the different kinds of grief that we experience and what's going on in the Black community, many there's a paradox, right, that exists a mental health paradox, as the all the psychiatrists here know about. African Americans don't report the same level of depression or psychiatric symptoms or levels of suicide as those in the white community do. And but we in the Black community do suffer from mental illness. We do suffer from grief and loss. A lot of times, especially for Black women, we suffer from the myth, the strong Black woman myth, which is both helpful at times for us to manage so many life pressures, but also creates barriers for us to seek help when we need help, or for people to believe, even in the medical community, that we might need help, right? So our pain is kind of diminished and discounted. Being a part, growing up in the Church of God in Christ, it's one of the largest Pentecostal denominations in the world, right? So we have a lot of members. But I'm speaking directly to what Dr. Shepherd mentioned about organizations. So I took classes at the Kellogg School at Northwestern. I got my PhD from Urbana, Champaign in Illinois. And studying organizations, I learned that organizations are run by people and people tend to do similar things, right? In churches and in schools and in different things like that. So with organizational behavior, if we have something that is institutionalized, if we have a structure in place, we can reach a lot more people. In our church, what I noticed is there are lots of loving people who have for years since the early, 20th century, who have been dealing and managing with grief and loss and helping our community. But we don't have an institutionalized, what I call comfort ministry, right? Where when someone dies, we should be able to go to our church. We should know where we can go to get help, to get resources to deal with that loss. If someone gets divorced, we should be able to go to the church and find those resources. And because we have mental health professionals who give freely their service, or maybe for a very reduced fee, their services, they could reach thousands of people. People who are uninsured, people who may not really believe or want one on one therapy, but need the resources that are provided within one on one therapy sessions. Not everybody needs it, nor do they want it, but we could all use many of those coping skills. And what I proposed to my pastor, as Bishop Austin at St. Luke, was that could our church, as an organizational body, institutionalize a comfort ministry that would help to address people, particularly under COVID, right? To help address the loss. Because what I found is that in our church, so many people who are supposed to address the loss, like the pastors or the missionaries, they're dealing with loss themselves. And
That's right.
so we need a structure of people who can move in and out, because loss is a part of life. We have to anticipate that the pastor will have loss. We have to anticipate that the missionary or the mother of the church will have loss. And so there should be someone who can move into that space very quickly, not take away their job, but to move into it address the needs of the body, and then let that person heal and come back if they choose so to serve in that position. So that's kind of what, it wasn't as much a critique as it was an observation of a gap in our personal church body. But I think in all, organizations that want to minister to people should have some kind of comfort ministry to help people, because it's a part of life, right? We don't do loss very well in our culture. And I believe as a sociologist, we don't do loss well because we live in a capitalist society that wants us to work. And in order to use the coping mechanisms that are healthy for grief, that means you have to take off work. You have to go somewhere and rest your mind. Sometimes you have to rest your body. Sometimes you have to give your children to your grandmother or to your sister and say, I can't watch these kids for the next 2 months, but that doesn't mean I don't want my kids forever. I just can't do it right now. And we need to normalize how we process grief. And in a capitalist society, it doesn't allow for that. So I think as a sociologist, that's why, or at least that's what I argue, that we don't allow for grief.
Woo! Come on here, Griffin, Dr. Johnson. I need you all to respond.
I think we're done.
I was about to say, I don't know what more needs to be said about that other than, yes, I think setting
Right,
that
we need it.
example, structure, it's necessary. That was great, Dr. Henderson. And, our community experiences loss at so much higher rate. When you think about COVID, for instance, right? It's Black people, Indigenous people, we are dying at higher rates of COVID. We're being impacted in ways other communities are not being impacted. Then on top of that, we're layering, we haven't even talked about the community grief that we are experiencing. I mean, we all heard about the verdict today about Ahmaud Arbery, and while some of us may feel some relief knowing that finally some justice, still doesn't take away the fact that there are people out in this world who think they could literally hunt down and kill a Black man for running, and there's grief in that. There's grief and fear, right? That we live in and experience every day because we are afraid to just breathe while being Black. And that's a process of grief, I think, and we're experiencing that. So our community is dealing with grief on so many levels, and we have to make sure that the church is responsive and or other organizations are responsive to the needs of the community. And I love what you said, Dr. Henderson, because it really is a needs-based approach of, okay, we got folks struggling who are, dealing with loss. Let's meet them where they are. Right. And how can we help that individual overcome their, create the space to grieve in a safe and healthy way. So.
And I would just add, not only the church, but we think about educational, higher education institutions, our jobs, right, in the corporate industry. I wonder how many people have grief or bereavement days in which they can take time off from their jobs. And if they do, are there stipulations? Does it have to be a primary family member in order for you to get a day or two of bereavement in order to, again, have that space just to take some time to be with your family and just, kind of sit in what you're feeling?
Yeah, because even some of the schools now are allowing what they call mental health days. Let me just say, I'm a provocative person. You all know that about me, and so I'm going to provoke the people who are on this platform now. We can no longer sit by and allow things that we know that are helpful just to not be done. Period. I'm going to challenge you for 2022. Institutionalized comfort ministry. Oh man, that I want to steal it.
Yeah.
I love it. And it can be a part of the move towards, diversity, equality, and equity. I think it could be included in that movement.
Oh yeah, I mean, it can definitely be integrated because there is a need, and I like what Dr. Draza said, it's a needs-based approach.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so many times we are working within organizations that unfortunately deal with the leader's needs and not the people who serve within that organization's needs. Okay. And we have got
Absolutely.
to come from the capitalistic point of view. And you're absolutely right, Dr. Henderson. I was talking with someone recently about the difference between the East culture, if you would, and the Western culture, or the Eastern culture versus the Western culture. The Eastern culture, they know they're going to die. We all know we're going to die. But the Eastern culture prepares the family, they prepares the people for death. They're actually living for death. You come over here to Western culture, and the folks around here talking about you living for what? They're almost ready to say you need to go see a psychiatrist because you try to kill yourself. And it's not. It's one of those things where we have to train ourselves to understand that we are here for a defined period of time. And because we have come through and are still in the midst of one of the world's greatest challenges, as Dr. Henderson has eloquently spoken about, we have got to do some work during this time. And yes, I know grief hurts, man, but let me tell you, it's a motivating factor, and this is where we're about to go into right now, because you can turn, as I've heard so many people say, your mess into your message. There is a way to come out of grieving. There is a healthy way to grieve. There is a way that you can be able to show people, I am not perfect. I'm still hurting, but yet that has not stopped my purpose and passion for what I'm called to do. So this is what Ask the Doctors is about. It's not about just educating, but we want to help you to put to practice what you are learning. So, wonderful segue here. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Draza. I want you to provide some words of comfort, some words of inspiration to those viewers who may be experiencing grief currently. They might be at the kitchen table. They might be at the sink right now. I see tears flowing through their eyes because of what is being said right now. Can you imagine that? Across the country, people are seeing this, and not just across the country, internationally. We do have international viewers on here. Um, let's provide some words of comfort. I'm going to start with you first, Erica. We're going to go to Maryland, then we're going to end out with Lauren. Okay, so let's go.
Well, I'd love to first just acknowledge the chat. I'm seeing all the comments of folks just
Mhm.
being so open and transparent
Yes.
about active grief you all are experiencing. And I just think it takes a lot of courage and bravery to share and to be as open and transparent as you are. And our prayers are with all of you, and condolences are with all of you. And one thing I could say, and a couple of things I'll offer. One is grace. We really want to approach ourselves with grace as we are grieving, not only for ourselves, but also those who are grieving close to us, giving them grace as well, right? When we see that others are suffering from grief and experiencing grief. So, offering yourself the grace to feel your feelings, to not be perfect. There's no perfect way to handle or to manage your grief. Giving yourself grace when you're not as productive at work as you usually are. Giving yourself grace when maybe you've been a little short with your kids, and maybe you could have been a little bit more patient, but you're having a harder time that day. Giving yourself grace when you have to just go and sit and cry. Giving yourself grace when you're angry or when you're anxious. So giving yourself grace to feel, to experience, and to give yourself permission to grieve. And then the second thing I would say is we really want to make sure that we are grounded in our community, grounded in our support system. This is when we're grieving, that is not the time to isolate. Sometimes we do need a quiet space to process. Even Jesus, had to get away and say, all right, y'all, I got to go and pray. because I'm grieving right now. That's necessary, but not forever, not for long. We definitely need to plug in and remain grounded in our community, our support networks, making sure that we don't grieve in isolation. And then lastly, being reminded, then this is a season, right, of gratitude.
Mm.
So as we grieve, we can hold grief and gratitude at the same time. There's room for both.
Woo. Come on here. I felt that. Whole grief and gratitude at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm okay. I'm using that one. All right. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. So I would say, don't forget that grief is a normal response and reaction to loss. Loss encompasses so much, so much. So just keep that in mind. Also, grief is, even though there are 5 stages of grief that Dr. Draza told us about earlier, grief is very individualized.
Mm.
So what it looks like for me is going to be different than what Dr. Draza experiences, what Dr. Henderson experiences, and what Dr. Shepard experiences.
That's right.
So your grief is your grief, and there's no timetable. So you just got to let it happen. There's going to be times where you feel okay, but you may get triggered and have another response or reaction, maybe even worse than what the initial one was. But guess what? It's going to pass and you'll get on the other side. It's just that may happen for a moment, but you'll get to the other side. And the last point I want to make is really for not necessarily the person that's experiencing the grief, but for the support system around you. So how do we support someone that is in the throes of grief? Be present. Be present. That's key. Be present. And then you can offer acts of kindness. So that act of kindness can be sitting there with them, listening, a listening ear. It can be mailing a card, sending flowers or a plant. It could be taking a meal. You know, during this time, somebody just might not feel like cooking because cooking is going to trigger the memories of cooking with grandma or, you know, the husband or wife that was lost. So taking a meal over or sending a meal, you know, there's so many meal services out there.
True.
Doing laundry, you know, helping to clean their house, being present, providing acts of kindness to others.
Oh, this is awesome. Awesome. We're building. All right, Dr. Henderson, we're going to allow you to take it on out.
Okay. Well, I just co-sign on everything that Dr. Jaza and Dr. Griffin said. I mean, a comfort ministry that I call it a comfort ministry, right? That we would have would include all of those acts of kindness and all of those acts of service. Because sometimes when people are grieving, if they've lost a spouse, for example, and they have young children, they need childcare. That's what they need. They really don't. I mean, yes, if you got a direct line to Jesus, you can pick up the phone and call them. But they really need you to watch their kids or pick them up from school or help them with their homework, right? Um,
Right.
you know, on a regular day, sometimes if you really want to know for people that what we haven't taught people, I think very well in Western culture, is that grief is not just a year. It's not like, oh, it's the first year and you're over it.
Right.
No. It's just the first year. And you did it the first time. But then, you know, next Thanksgiving is the second year. And then it's the third. And then it's forever, right? And so we have to learn that when people lose something that cannot be replaced, that they might grieve that for many years. And we we hope to help people to just buttress them so that they can continue to function in the ways that feel good and healthy for them, right? And just to be prepared, if you see someone grieving and it's 3 years into the loss of whatever it was, could be a divorce. I was gifted a day at the Ivy Hotel, which is a black owned hotel that I want to give a shout out to on this call,
Come on.
because
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful place. But there was a beautiful black woman who was sitting there, and we were in the lobby together, and she said, "I come here every year to deal with my divorce."
Wow.
Just to take a day for myself because that's all I can afford to do. But I'm going to do it for me. And it just grief doesn't end. It shouldn't really. You should never really stop caring that someone died. But if you're not functioning, if you're not getting dressed, if you're not able to eat, or if you're not able to feed and care for your children, please reach out because there's help. And there are people who want to help you. And you don't have to be alone or feel bad about that. And it can get better. That's what I want.
Oh wow. Oh, this has just been awesome. I tell you. Let me just say this. Grief can paralyze you. Grief can cause you to stop living. And that's what Dr. Henderson was just talking about. You want to receive help. You want to reach out for help if grief has stopped you from living. That's called being dysfunctional. That's called being disordered. And there could be major depressive disorder or anxiety disorder. Even some people will fall into the category of a psychotic disorder because they start living in a reality that's not truthfully uh, uh, in a quote unquote real world. Yeah, grief can really paralyze you and stop you from living. But here's the thing about it, because I hear somebody out there, well, Dr. Shepard, I'm just going to avoid grief. I don't plan on having grief. Well, let me tell you, you cannot avoid grief.
So I was going to say, good luck.
Yeah.
Here's
It's a
what we're-
human, unless you're not human. I mean, but it is a human experience. So
well, there is one way you can avoid grief.
You can die.
Avoid love.
Avoid that. There you go. Yeah.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
how. So if you're gonna love somebody, you're gonna grieve. All right. That's the only way you can avoid grief is to avoid love. I hear somebody, I want to avoid love. Oh,
No.
okay, all right. We to help you out a little bit. So that's the only way that you're going to avoid grief is to avoid love. And we don't want to do that. This has been such a tremendous conversation. Listen, 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 you all. There will be a part two to this. There will be a part two to this. And also, I want to replay this episode because let me tell you, this broadcast today is going to be so helpful for those who go back and watch. All right. Thank you. I forgot the dog's name, but for coinciding, he was barking his uh, his signature or signing off on what has just been said. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. But let me tell you, there's going to be a part two to this next week. Next week, you do not want to miss it. We have the grief guru herself is going to be on here. Annette March Greer, who is the CEO and founder of Roberta's House. She was nominated on for CNN Heroes, which is a national, actually is an international type of award. Yes, international. And so she's going to be on here. She have developed a relationship with her. You just never know who's going to be on Ask the Doctors. And so she has agreed next week Friday, she'll be on here. We're going to do part two because let me tell you, we're not done with this. We're going to manage. I was going to say attack, but we're not going to attack. We're going to manage this grief. and we're going to be able to hold gratitude and grief at the same time and be able to walk through the rest of 2021 and walk into 2022 knowing what our purpose is and knowing that with the grief that came with me is going to help me to propel me to accomplish my objective.
Amen.
Amen.
So y'all done got me started.
A lot of people in the back.
So honestly, so you want to stay tuned, and you'll be hearing some more from our wonderful panelists. Let's let them know where we can reach out. We'll start with you, Dr. Henderson. Where can people reach out to you if they have any questions or if they want to ask anything of you?
You can email me at Lauren, Loren, at UMBC, like University of Maryland, Baltimore County, .edu. I'll be happy to respond to any questions or comments.
Wonderful. Dr. Draza?
Yes, you can reach me via email as well, erica.drasa at catalystnc.com, or you can follow me on IG at dr.dr_E2K.
All right. She got a lot of names, a lot of letters in her name, so that's why I can't type it that. I can't type it that.
Come on, Dr. Shepard. Come on.
So you see how to spell her name right there. So she spelled it correctly.
Just add an at catalystnc.com. There you go.
Right. So you better get on there and do that. Come on.
Theo is co-signing.
Dr. Griffin, where can we reach you at?
That is hilarious. You can find me on LinkedIn as Dr. Marilyn Griffin, or you can always send me a message via Facebook. On Facebook, I am Doc Boogie.
All right. Wonderful. All right. So this has been great. Hope Health Systems, if you're in need of mental health services, we'll do you some good. We are located in Woodlawn, Maryland, which is a suburb of Baltimore, Maryland. Please let somebody know that we are here to help them. I'll put, again, the website where you can go and fill out a referral online. We'll get back with you if you're in need of services, direct mental health services. Let me tell you, people are in need of help. You're grieving that person. You are grieving that loss. You're trying to figure out why you're so overwhelmed and anxious, as Dr. Henderson said, and you need somebody who you can talk to. Come on over to Hope Health Systems, and we'll provide you some assistance. Like I always say, we'll do you some good. HopeHealthSystems.com. All right, until next week, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope that you're going to celebrate with your family, share those memories. It's all right to bring little tissue, Kleenex to the table. Think about grandmother, think about the persons who are no longer with you, and then have a smile, think about a laugh and some of the things that they may have said or done. And that's how you are able to manage the grief. All right. So nothing's wrong with you. It may not feel like it's the happiest time of the year. Nothing's wrong with you. It's just, as Dr. Griffin said, this is a time when we have so many memories and we start to see where we have experienced these losses. All right. Until next week, Dr. Jonathan Shepard here. Guests, please hold on and we'll sign off together. Take care. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thanksgiving.